what you have seen would be shown to betas or gammas, much less to deltas like these. But each of you is an alpha. You weren't mass-produced in computer-cloned Bakanowski batches. And you are all supremely happy, supremely content. But then, that is truly the perfection of our civilization. Everyone is adjusted. Everyone has been conditioned to want to do the work he has to do. And thus, everyone is perfectly happy, perfectly content. Alphas like you, betas, gammas, deltas like these, or even epsilons. Are you happy?
Happiness for all is happiness for each.
Are you glad to be deltas?
Deltas all have lots of fun. Deltas get to play and run.
Very good.
Hey, what's up guys? Gons here for the Face Like the Sun channel. Some other people might have covered this, but I thought it was important to at least document on the channel here. And that is this idea of moving into Generation Alpha. And in fact, I learned that my own baby daughter, who is 2 years old now, is considered to be born in the middle of Generation Alpha. So this is Singularity Hub, and they had an article this week, Coming of Age in the Age of AI, the first fully digital generation. And just real briefly, I'll read a little bit here. It says, the first generation to grow up entirely in the 21st century will never remember a time before smartphones or smart assistants. They will likely be the first children to ride in self-driving cars, as well as the first whose healthcare and education could be increasingly turned over to artificially intelligent machines. Futurists, demographers, and marketers have yet to agree on the specifics of what defines the next wave of humanity to follow Generation Z. That hasn't stopped some, like Australian futurist Mark McCrindle, from coining the term Generation Alpha, denoting a sort of reboot of society in a fully realized digital age. And this McGriddle guy said, quote, now the individual has great control of their lives through being able to leverage this world. Technology, in a sense, transformed the expectations of our interactions. No doubt, technology may impart Marvel superhero-like powers to Generation Alpha that even tech-savvy millennials never envisioned over cups of chai latte. Okay? But the powers of machine learning, computer vision, and other disciplines under the broad category of AI will shape this yet unformed generation more definitively than any before it. What will it be like to come of age in the age of AI? And then it gets into all the places where AI can affect and has already begun to affect our youth. And of course, the military-industrial complex is really behind this whole movement and this whole cultural shift, not just in mainstream culture, but also in the institutions that really legitimize these cultural trends that seem to be moving in the direction of technology integration, data analysis integration into our lives, and accepting it as normal, and all of these issues that so many people warned about. Well, it's here, Generation Alpha. Later in the article, it states, last year, the Federal Defense Agency, DARPA, announced a new program aimed at improving AI by teaching it common sense. One of the chief strategies is to develop systems for, quote, teaching machines through experience, mimicking the way babies grow to understand the world. I just think it's a little bit dehumanizing in a sense. And the idea here is really trying to humanize the machine. And that was always going to be the thing that causes the rate of progress to really skyrocket and go parabolic, is the mimicking of the human being. And this is a point that Archeologic from Destiny Lab, who we just interviewed on Canary Cry Radio, that we'll be publishing soon here, he mentioned it, and I think it's worth repeating and reminding people. After Adam and Eve fell and sin became present and death became present, why did God prevent us from eating from the tree of life? Well, it's because we shouldn't be in an eternal state in this fallen condition. That's the whole point. And so when you look at technology, where it's taking us and how it's affecting us, sociologically now, but eventually it'll be biologically. The promises that it's giving for eternal life and all these things, it's the same promise as the gospel message of Jesus Christ. And that's why I talk about it all the time. And it's because it really is a head-to-head collision of two worldviews, one that suggests a transcendent source, the source that actually created all of this, as opposed to the more humanistic version, which again is akin to creating eternal life in this fallen state. That's what transhumanism and the post-human goal is, without even realizing it. They took the bite of the apple, and they want to remain in that state forever. So that's why I think it's interesting that they are naming this generation Alpha. And I'm sure now that it's been out there, it's going to become a little bit more prominent. There were already articles at the end of last year in 2018 that were starting to mention this. This is digiday.com. Forget millennials. Gen Alpha is here, mostly. Time to feel old. If you were just getting your head around marketers' obsession with millennials, get ready for Gen Alpha to take center stage. Here's what you need to know to get ahead, really ahead. The basics. Gen Alpha, also known as the children of millennials, is the first generation born entirely within the 21st century. Mark McCriddle, a generational researcher and consultant in Australia, coined the term back in 2005. It has stuck with generational forecasters so far. Gen Alpha have birth dates starting in 2010, so the majority of this cohort are still sporting diapers, teething, or have not even made it to the womb yet. The year 2010 was chosen as this was the year both Instagram and the iPad launched. So anybody born after 2010, all you little kids out there, little children, you have been labeled Generation Alpha. McCrindle's consultancy has predicted that 2.5 million alphas are born around the world every week. The generation will reach a total of 2 billion people worldwide by the time the youngest people are born in 2025, which is what they're kind of angling as the end of Generation Alpha and perhaps the beginning of Generation Beta, according to Brave New World, and I'll get to that in a second here. The marketers angle alphas are going to expect the same interactive, responsive experience from every brand, said Laura McDonald, head of consumer of North America at Hotwire. Quote, so if clothing companies start using AR to help people create bespoke experiences, which brands like Nike already are, while shopping Generation Alpha will expect the same from grocery stores or even when it comes to buying car insurance. Hotwire is already working with companies like software company McAfee and robotics company Enki, interesting name, maybe like the god Enki of Sumerian mythology, to use its Gen Alpha's findings to guide the strategy in their latest campaigns. See how this entire marketing machine and software companies and all this stuff, it's all part of spoon feeding an entire generation. And of course, the media angle, Full Screen Media, which runs its entire entertainment business with Gen Zers multi-channel use in mind, is already researching the young alphas before they grow into its target audience and is finding that their attention spans are actually showing more promise. Crystal Surency, VP of Strategy and Insight at Full Screen Media, said that when watching content with their millennial parents, alphas prefer to watch content 8 minutes or longer. And then, of course, they have to throw this in there. Some believe a lot of characteristics found in Gen Zers will become even more prominent in alphas as they grow up. Victoria Mulligan, assistant of insights and strategy at Carrot US, said to expect the same pull towards multiculturalism, or New World Order, and even further disintegration of gender norms. And that is part of the entire transhumanist agenda, the transgender issue, and becoming normalized, which is framed in this way of celebrating those who are different and celebrating those who have been oppressed, which is true. These people have been bullied and oppressed and all this stuff throughout history. And, you know, medical science labeled them a mental disorder because of certain behavioral characteristics that were highly disruptive to society. I mean, in general, if you just being honest here, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but that's the reality of the situation. And really, the people that are actually suffering from the reality of this thing, this gender confusion, this gender dysphoria, I'm sorry to say, those people are being targeted and used for political gain, for social change. And that's why there's all this confusion and weirdness in social media. I think it's designed. It's chaos meant to cause disruption in social norms to start breaking things down. And instead of taking care of these people and helping them understand themselves, understand how society is and how God created us, they have been celebrated to the degree of becoming the pedestal for massive social change. So that's my little analysis on, the whole transgender thing in connection to transhumanism. It's obviously there in the occult when you look at historically ancient Egypt and, the sort of nebulous idea of a male-female fused God, some interpretations of Genesis, mostly from what I've seen and what I've researched. It's more the Kabbalistic traditions and the secret societies and those types of occult beliefs that suggest Adam and Eve was actually Adam anyway, was a hermaphrodite, and there was some sort of genetic tampering or some sort of thing that took place where engineering happened to create or separate the male and female aspects as part of this duality that we live in. Those are all interpretations, but really if you get to the bare bones of the Bible, it's like, no, God created man, and it's pretty clear he needed help, and he took a rib out and made a woman. And look, there are things that seem very crazy and like alien sort of laboratory-ish when you look at it from the 21st century sci-fi lens. But that's just it. And maybe this is part of the reference again to the days of Noah, where these things, the knowledge of this type of behavior, this type of capacity was present in some way, or somebody had that knowledge. But that's where I think we can start seeing when God intervenes, it's supernatural. It transcends this creation because he created it. He can intervene and really create miracles against nature. And I think that's the point. God, as the creator, he has ultimate right and control over creation. He allows us to exist, but also he can intervene in certain ways, in many different ways. And part of that being supernatural or against nature or above nature, in that it defies the laws at which creation has been set. And that power really only belongs to God. When mankind tries to harness those powers, when other entities that are supposed to be servants of God decide to try to harness that power themselves, that's when we have the rebellion of the divine council, parts of it, and the entire restoration narrative that is part of the biblical story arc, which, again, a lot of churches and stuff ignore because, they just want to focus in on a couple things that are comfortable and are, they are central issues of the gospel, but I think a lot of them are failing to put it into context of where we are and where we're headed culturally, sociologically, even, again, biologically. And getting back to the alphas here, I think it's something to be noted, of course, again, alphas, the top of the caste system in Brave New World, written by Aldous Huxley. This little wiki books here summarizes the alphas and the betas. Alphas and betas are at the top of the caste system and perform the more intellectual jobs. Unlike the lower castes, alphas and betas are not clones, allowing for more individual personalities. Alphas wear gray, the betas wear mulberry. Examples of alphas include Thomas, Henry Foster, Mustafa Mond, Bernard Marx, Benito Hoover, and Helmholtz Watson. Some betas include Lenina Crown, Fanny Crown, and Linda. And of course, in Brave New World, you have the gammas, the deltas, the epsilons, and those are, a lot of them are clones, to serve the alphas and the betas. And so think about this. Let me read another summary here. Alphas have it all. They are highly intelligent, extremely refined, and very good looking. Life for alphas is not bad at all. Of course, they do have the demanding job of running society. But even that's not so bad, as it's literally what they've trained for their entire lives. They undergo intense conditioning from birth to prepare them for their roles in society and to make them feel superior to all other castes. Now, there's so many connections here that you can make with reality now, because, again, this Generation Alpha, all this technology and advertising and marketing being targeted at them, and looking at where culture is taking us, the Marvel universe is huge. And if we think about the entire comic book world and just that whole concept of media entertainment and art, again, like anything else, it's going to be abused because it's something that attracts people. And the most recent example of this is AwesomeCon, and this is from comicsbeat.com. CIA sponsorship at AwesomeCon creates controversy, and this is about a month old from April. But basically, AwesomeCon had CIA people present there recruiting people. They were like, yeah, this is the next generation. We want to inform them and we want to help them, be a part of the class that will run society, or at least the people that will birth the children who will be part of the alpha generation. And according to this article, the CIA also had a booth on the con floor. It's front and center, one of the larger booth spaces on the show floor, circled in red photo below, and you can kind of take a look at it here. There it is. That's where the CIA booth was at this conference. And this was the one that was really interesting and caught people's attention. This presentation that they had, Thinking Like a DO Officer, Einstein as an Asset. And it says, quote, in this interactive session, participants will immerse themselves into the world of human intelligence, HUMINT, and learn what it's like to be a real CIA Directorate of Operations officer. Participants will use an actual letter written by Albert Einstein to President Roosevelt in 1939 to explore the roles of different DO officers in responding to the information he presents. The audience is first introduced to the roles of the operations officer, staff operations officer, collection management officer, targeting officer, and language officer, and then apply the skills of each category of the information in Einstein's letter. And so basically what they were trying to do was get the audience to figure out how they would use the system to extract Einstein from Nazi Germany for the benefits of the United States. I was just talking about like using certain things as a sort of prop or a pedestal to create change. This is it right here. They're just teaching how to do this. So again, I mean, it's just all out in the open now, folks. There's really no excuse for not knowing or not understanding these issues. At least know what's going on out there. And I think it's pretty concerning that they're calling this generation, or trying to push this generation, as Generation Alpha. Who knows if they'll actually achieve it, right? Because a lot of times this sort of thing, it's a control of language, it's a control of ideas. And so to get it out there, now that we're done with Generation Z, we're going to move back, and instead of A or a number or something like that, we're going to go with Alpha. Conveniently, something that is mentioned in Brave New World, which again seems to be less of a science fiction story and more of a blueprint for society moving forward here. And all of that leading to the mark of the beast, the worship of the image of the beast, that if you take of it, you will lose your soul, folks. And actually, if we want to dig into it even more, I think that issue solves a lot of the dissension between like Calvinists and all that stuff. I think it solves it because, there is an eschatological time when certain people will be cut off from salvation. And just to add on here, because there's so much news, it's so hard to keep up with everything. We covered it in Canary Cry News Talk this week, but effectively they're saying that the super freak athletes that we're seeing, like for example, Zion Williamson, I think it's really interesting that this kid that's supposed to be a prodigy for basketball is named Zion. I think maybe coincidence, maybe not, but hey, this is, we're living in Generation Alpha. They got to start putting out the alpha types out there in terms of athletics, which is a huge, again, pedestal, a platform to create social change. The NBA being a place that, traditionally I grew up really loving the NBA and like loving basketball. I still play basketball, personally, try to stay in shape and stuff like that. But in terms of the NBA itself, the institution, my goodness, it has just gone to the wayside. It has become a spokesarm for the New World Order. Absolutely. And so that's really too bad, but that's what it is. And I think we're going to see transhumanism and genetic engineering in athletics. We're already, the problem, the issue we're having with like males and transgender males, or transgender males. Yeah. Transgender males, guys that think they're women competing in female, athletic events and winning. And I mean, this is ridiculous. They should have their own category if they want to do this. Or we're just going to continue to get pushed into this direction of disruption, of chaos, and it's leading to social change. Disruption leads to change, and that's what they want, more disruption. And the Bible says that the earth is going to be groaning, waiting eagerly for the sons of God to be revealed. And that's us, not the sons of God from Genesis 6, but the restored sons of God in the new heaven and the new earth, because restoration is part of this entire plan. And as humans get more and more in control, or what they think is control over creation, especially biologically, but also, quantum and all this kind of stuff, the more apparent and obvious it will become that the Bible was speaking the truth the entire time, and that there is salvation only in Jesus Christ, not through genetic engineering or any kind of medicine that promises an ascension, an eternal happiness, an eternal state of joy, whatever it is not comparable to the actual restoration that God promised and proved through the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. So hope you get something out of this, guys. There's a lot going on. I have to get back to training my 2-year-old alpha generation daughter. What are we going to call the people that are like not wanting to be a part of this? Like the anti-alphas or something? Who knows? Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Love you guys. Have an awesome day. God bless.